Welcome to The Yin Project. I'm your host, Emily Bevan. Today we are talking to Allie Cates. She is a trauma recovery coach based in Petaluma. You can find her on Instagram at alliecates.co. Let's get started. Allie, thanks so much for being with us today. We have so much to talk about. I just want to dive right into it. Let's talk about how you got into the work that you're doing now, because everyone has a story and your story is super interesting. So let's dive right into it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. I love this studio. It's so fun to be in person. It's actually my first in-person podcast. So
good.
Fun to be here.
Yeah, it's a different energy for sure.
So my story really starts is that when I'm 22, my husband and I lose 3 people in 9.5 months.
Right.
And these deaths brought up of all this trauma that I had shoved down from childhood. And I just...
Were all of these, can I ask, were they surprises?
Yes.
All surprises. What? 2 were car related, right?
Yeah. So 1 got hit by a train in Chico. 1 got hit by a drunk driver, and then another one, my friend lost her battle to cancer at 23.
Wow.
Yeah. So they were all within 9.5 months. And so they really surprised me. I had a lot of grief and I had a lot of trauma just coming up that I was like, oh my gosh, I thought I've worked through this, or, somehow was just trying to rationalize it. And it's because I had really disassociated from it.
How did that feel? Like, I had some trauma and then something kind of after that happened as well.
Yeah.
My sister took her own life and let's say March. And then maybe a couple months later, my best friend was running in the Boston Marathon and we couldn't find her. And right now, even talking about it, I'm going right back there of I literally can't deal with this. It's too much. And I remember that feeling.
Yeah.
I'm actually going there right now. So I'm going to have to stop myself.
Yeah.
What was that like? It was like where the hits just keep coming. Tell me, what did that feel like for you?
Yeah. I mean, the best way that I can describe it is, 1 is that I just started numbing with alcohol, which I really, I'm almost 5 years sober, but at that time.
Oh my gosh, so am I.
Oh my gosh.
When is your anniversary?
It's December 9th.
Mine, I don't know my date,
but
mine is it'll be January 2024.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Wow. Congrats to us.
Let's cheers to some water. I love it.
That's amazing. We're both coming up on 5 years, 2018. Well, the end of 2017 for you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So for me, it was, distracting with alcohol and numbing agents, right?
Right.
And whether that was, even just unhealthy
because it's
eating.
a great excuse.
Oh yeah.
No one is gonna question. No one's gonna question your alcohol consumption when you're grieving. You look at an Irish wake. Everyone, there's and
I'm Irish.
And you're Irish, so there's a camaraderie and and getting drunk together.
Yeah.
And no one would question that at all. So it's almost like you kind of got a free pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just remember this feeling like I wanted to tear my skin off almost. I don't know how else to describe it, but this itchy, trying to get out of my body feeling was really present for me. And I remember, I was so feeling out of body, this
So
itchy.
You're in college or you graduated?
I just graduated college.
Okay.
So I'm, 22. My parents bought this beautiful home for my then boyfriend, now husband, to live in. So everything on paper looks perfect. We have this home. We don't have a mortgage.
Wow, at 22.
At 22. Everything on paper looks perfect, right? So when people, when I'm telling, people that knew me at that time, they're like, what? Everything seemed great. You would always have people over to your brand new house. You had everything you needed. So why was all of this pain coming up in a really big way?
Yeah.
And I felt so guilty of having this pain come up because I'm like, everything
I'm still alive.
Yeah.
The survivor's guilt.
Yeah, but not even that. But it was everything on paper looks perfect.
Right.
So why?
I should be happy.
Yeah, I should be happy. There's so much guilt and shame around that. And I remember,
How dare...
Yeah.
I deal with that now.
Yeah.
Libya, Morocco. There was a big lotto the other night and I was like, I want to win the lotto. And then I didn't, obviously. I'm still here. And then I was like, God is probably saying, you already won the freaking lotto. Mm-hmm. You live in the United States.
Yeah.
Like, you've already won the lottery. You know what I mean? And like, that's just like a one. But you start to have that, like, well, how dare I feel sad? Like, people just lost their lives. We just had 9/11, and you know, all of the things I know I can sometimes not allow my feelings to feel real or validated because there's so many other big T's, big traumas happening in the world right now. Yeah. So it sounds like that's kind of how you were feeling.
Yeah, you know, and like I had a lot of big T traumas around sexual trauma that I had completely disassociated from that were coming up during that time in a big way. I was having nightmares, I was having panic attacks, I was having suicidal ideation. And I remember calling a trauma recovery coach in town, and I saw his sign, and I was like, well, maybe this is what I have. Because at that time in my life, I was like, I felt so out of body. I went on a healing quest and tried so many things. I tried, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy, talk therapy, EMDR, hypnotherapy, like brain rewiring or neuroplasticity. Because people were like, try this, try that.
And then you found this guy?
And then I found this guy.
Okay.
And I remember calling him, and we were, you know, I was out on a bike ride with Ryan because I was feeling so out of body. I'm like, I have to just get out of here.
Yeah.
And I stop, and I'm in the middle of this park, and he's talking to me, and I'm telling him what's happening. He's like, you know, you're not going to believe me, but I used to work with veterans for 40 years. And then I started working with civilians because everyday civilians have trauma and PTSD. And he said, you're probably not going to believe me, but you're dealing with trauma. You're dealing with
like, what the heck is that?
Yeah. And then, working with him, he's like, you have complex developmental trauma, which is where you have trauma in your childhood, and it literally dictates, it's complex, right? So it dictates how you move in life.
Right.
And I was like, this white girl with blonde hair and blue eyes, how the hell do I have, you know, complex PTSD?
Right.
Like, what is that? And so that was like my healing journey. And I was with him for about 3.5 years in like intense trauma recovery. And then, we went on to lose 7 people in 2.5 years in that time frame. So that just kept on bringing stuff.
So you lost 4 more people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was just like.
Did you feel like with each loss you felt a little stronger?
No, I mean, I felt like, what is happening? Like, and I'll talk to my friends that I was close with at that time. And it was like every time we got a phone call at, 11 o'clock at night or at 3 o'clock in the morning.
You must have been like, Tara, when my parents call me every time, I'm like, oh my God, what's wrong?
Yeah,
because they never call me.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you think it's going to be bad news. So were you like literally scared to answer the phone?
Yeah. I mean, Ryan would keep his phone on loud because we would get these calls at like weird times from our friends that were like, did you hear? And you're like, what? It was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot to deal with and a lot to even, I mean, like you're in your early 20s, like, and to have all of that.
Yeah. I didn't lose anyone significant until I was in my, I think, early 30s.
But
like
still,
22 to lose 9 people.
7
people.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. So then I'm with him in 3 weeks before Ryan and I get married. I get diagnosed with late stage chronic Lyme and 5 other autoimmune conditions. And
was it tick related? Can I ask?
Yeah. So Lyme disease does come from ticks, right? But it can also come from like they're learning more about like other blood carrying insects. But I originally I was misdiagnosed at 13 and had all these kind of health problems.
Oh gosh.
And simultaneously, like that was when I had the last time I had a really big T trauma happen was when I was 13.
So you were bit by something when you were probably 13.
Yeah, that's like what we're like piecing together.
Okay.
But when I was with, this trauma recovery coach, I knew enough about trauma that if it is not moved out of the body, it's going to manifest physically.
Yeah.
It's going to manifest in autoimmune disease or cancer. Mm-hmm. And I was dealing with 2 of those in a really, really big way. Mm-hmm. So we get home from our honeymoon. I sit in an IV room for 9.5 months, have a port put in my chest. I'm in there 3 to 4 times a week, 6 to 8 hours a day, and like have an ego death. Like everything inside of me, I'm like, I can't go back to the person that I was before. Mm-hmm. And this is breaking me down to build me back up is what I would say on my good days, right? So then got out of the IV room, health starts to improve, and I'm like, I'm gonna try. So
do you technically have Lyme disease now?
I am almost done with treating it fully. So there's only one way that you can actually kill it is through bee venom therapy.
Okay.
So most people think you have it for life, and that's not true.
Okay.
So yeah. So I've been.
And you feel like you're getting the care that you need here in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
great.
amazing.
Yeah. I've been through the ringer with all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I sat in that IV room and like came up with coaching and like, what do I want to do? And went back and got certifications around trauma recovery, currently becoming a somatic experience practitioner through Peter Levine's work, who started somatic experiencing. And that's like how my business was born, is from the IV room.
And you see clients here in Petaluma.
Yes.
But you can also help clients online around the world.
Yeah.
Essentially.
I've had people all over.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And so at 22, like, you've grown up. Can I ask how old you are now?
I'm 30.
You're 30 now. Mm-hmm. So you like grew up really fast.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up really fast in my childhood. Yeah. So then like that.
Which is very projector.
Yeah. Well, it's very just like developmental trauma too, right? Mm-hmm. It's like I feel like I was always a little adult.
Actually, I shouldn't say that. I retract that statement. It's very number 8.
Oh, okay.
On the Enneagram.
Okay.
8s felt like in childhood
they had to be
like
mom.
Essentially, I think the Enneagram is like it's created versus human design. You're sort of, that's who you are out of the womb.
Yep.
And Enneagram, the personality archetypes are created. 8s felt like they grew up too fast, and one of their biggest fears is being controlled by others. Mm-hmm. And when they are parents, their strongest desire is to protect childhood. And that's like a huge thing for me with my children. And that's why we're in Waldorf education, because I'm all about like protecting the innocence of children. And sometimes I feel like, I don't know, maybe people think I'm a little like crazy, but I'm like, there's 53 cases right now of like sexual abuse that was just reported in Bay Area schools that they're covering. And I'm like, I'm not crazy. Like, and I look back at my own childhood, and there were a lot of things that happened that were not appropriate. Yeah. Not developmentally appropriate. And so I'm all about like, preserving childhood and the innocence of childhood for as long as possible. I also want to make sure that like my child is prepared for the real world. And I think that's the balance. Like, I don't want them to get out there and be like, I've been living in the woods forever. I can't handle it. So it is a balance. But that's a big thing about being an 8.
Yeah. You know what's so interesting? I remember someone telling me this in the trauma space, is that if you're constantly trying to like type things, which I'm always constantly trying to type things, that it's a trauma response. Like, you're trying to place things where they need to be.
I mean, we're not going to go into like, And like you and I talked about this offline, like, same thing. Like, I don't have any trauma. I wasn't, X, Y, and Z, when you hear about these big.
But there's also little T's that we don't talk about.
Right. Yeah. So like, I'm sure I'm going to be doing some work after this. Because I think everyone does. And I think it's healthy to revisit things and make sure that they are out of the body. Yeah. What were you saying prior? You were just, I want to go back to that thought that you just had. Was it about the little T's?
Yes.
Yeah.
So little T traumas.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So people, I think, are always, and myself included, like, unless you've been sexually abused or you've been to war, that's trauma. Yes. And as someone that has had sexual abuse, like in a big way in their past, I still wasn't thinking it was trauma. I was like, well, I haven't been to war, And you always talk to the person.
My trauma's not big enough.
It's not big enough. You talk to the person that like has had sexual assault, and they're like, well, this, and this didn't happen, so it can't be considered sexual assault. And then you talk to that person, they're like, well, this didn't happen. It's always escalated. Mm-hmm. It always seems like it has to be bigger, right? Mm-hmm. The way that I describe little T and big T traumas is like, imagine there's person A and there's person B, okay? Person A comes from like a healthy, regulated home where they know how to like work through their emotions. They know how to move the charge out of their body. Person B doesn't come from that. And they both witness a car accident, right? Mm-hmm. Person A is going to maybe think about the car accident for the next couple of days, but then eventually their nervous system, their capacity, they're going to forget about it. Mm-hmm. Person B is probably going to be thinking about that car accident every day. They're going to want to be calling the hospital. They're going to want to, every single time they drive past the spot, they're going to be thinking about it. So this is like little T and big T traumas. Like, just because it wasn't a big catastrophic trauma does not mean that it's...
I feel like I'm kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time right now with Libya and Morocco. I really am.
Yeah. How come?
Because I'm putting myself in that, I'm like too empathic. I have that like physical response where I'm like putting myself in the shoes. I'm imagining myself like being a mom, like watching my child be swept away. Like I could start crying right now.
Yeah.
Because I feel the pain that those people, I can't even fathom it.
Yeah.
So my husband's dad was on Flight 93. September 11th just happened. And that's a whole other story. That's his story. He was in college, freshman when that happened. But I was flying that morning as well. And I remember being on the flight thinking, oh my gosh. I didn't have a cell phone back then. I was flying back to San Diego out of Columbus, Ohio. And I remember being on the plane thinking like, oh my gosh, I was on a United flight. And I think they were all United flights. Maybe one of them was an American one. Just thinking of me being on that and what it would be like. Yeah. And I have a hard time with that. What is, I mean, I don't want to turn this into like the me show, but
well, I think there's a couple things.
I'm too empathic. Like, how do I create and I'm trying to do that because I go in with people and I'm right there with them.
Yeah.
When they bring me in on something, and I'm not good at like
separating.
Yeah. I would be a terrible, like I want to bring every dog home from the pound type person. I don't think I would be good at having that wall of like, I see you and I honor you, but I can't go there with you.
Yeah. You know what I will say? Like a couple of thoughts are coming up, which the first one is that when you have childhood or any sort of trauma in your childhood, you're going to constantly your nervous system is going to try to regulate it, right? So anything that triggers that old wound is going to activate this old pain in you. So when you see the moms and the children, you're like, oh my gosh, that's activating something in your system, right? And I don't know what that is, but I can just see it in you that it's activating. Or even just talking about 9/11 and having like survivor's guilt because you're like, I was on a plane. How come it wasn't that plane?
Yeah, I did. I had like survivor, like.
Right.
Yeah.
So like that's activating in your system. And I think that, trauma.
And so the way that you would approach this, like I can just be an example for everyone that's listening, and everyone has a story. Yeah. Everyone has this. Yeah. There's not anyone that goes unscathed throughout this world. How would you approach like some of these things that you're just seeing in me? Is it
I would do some like somatic experiencing with you.
What is that? Are we doing jumping jacks?
No.
Am I getting a massage?
No.
Well, give me an example.
Yeah, so somatic experiencing is, well, first I just want to say this, is that trauma is about anything that left your nervous system in a place of fight or flight longer than it takes to outrun a metaphorical tiger. Okay? So that's number one, right? And number two is like, if I were to work with you, I think I would do somatic work, like somatic experiencing work, what Peter Levine teaches, which is around helping you complete this stress cycle. So when we go into stress, we go into...
Like it's never been fully, the loop hasn't been closed.
Yeah, so you have a trigger.
So then I just get right back on that damn ride.
Yeah, so you have a trigger.
Yeah.
You go into fight or flight, right? You have a discharge or a release at the bottom, which most of us do not know how to do because it's blocked. Then you go into rest and digest. This is where you heal in your parasympathetic, right? Most of us go from being triggered to fight or flight and triggered to fight or flight, and we build this emotional charge that gets stored in the body. So the work that I do with clients is helping to complete that cycle, and they're little cycles. It's not like we can do big stuff, but things like, okay, where are you feeling that in your body? Okay, where's a safe place in your body? And then we're like pendulating back in
What's
and
like
out.
a normal, like, give me an example of like a normal, someone that is able to successfully like kind of close that loop.
Okay, yeah. So I had a client yesterday and she couldn't sleep for like the last month. She hasn't been able to sleep. She's been sleeping like maybe 2 hours a night. Just
and
super
she's not
stressed.
breastfeeding.
No.
That's like my nightmare.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So she's just in this hyper fight or flight. So we did some somatic work. There were tears, there was shaking, there was, head twitch and movements that needed to happen. And then she slept 8 hours last night. like first time in a month that she was able to sleep 8 hours.
That's a testimonial right there.
Right. But it's like these things, like for example, we learned this in our training. It's like this gentleman had been to war and there was an IED explosion over his right shoulder and he had a tic. So he kept on turning to the right. And after Peter Levine did somatic experiencing with him, after 5 sessions, he didn't have this tic anymore because he kept on trying to orient to the threat, which was over his right shoulder, right? So most of us don't even live in our bodies. So then for me to say this, people are like, what the heck is she talking about? I have no clue what she's talking about.
I want to do a timeout. So I just listened to I Love Diary of a CEO, that podcast, and he had Rainn Wilson on. I don't know when, but I just finally listened to this Rainn Wilson one, who's from The Office, Dwight.
Oh, love.
And he was saying like, he's super spiritual. He has done a ton of work, has a lot of big T's, some little T's too, has done a tremendous amount of work on himself, and now is all he has like a project. I think it's like Soul Pancake. He's all about giving back and just doing all the really cool things and doing the work that he probably, needed to do.
Yeah.
And he was like, I think that Stephen Bartlett had asked him, like, well, were you doing therapy? He's like, this was the 90s. Nobody did therapy then. Therapy was like for rich people like Woody Allen. I just thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
I just thought that was the funniest thing because I mentioned my sister earlier. Like, she didn't do therapy. My mom had depression. Nobody did therapy then.
Yeah.
So my point is, like, we're at this amazing time where we can talk about all of these things. And like, I just shared a lot of personal things and I don't feel shame around that.
Yeah.
I don't feel any this secret where we have to like, not mention my sister and what she did and the shame that it would bring. And everyone is kind of coming out with their experiences and talking about it in a great way. And there's so many resources. If access is still a huge thing, as we know, and there's still so much we don't know about the brain. I have a brother who has bipolar, and that's kind of a whole other story. It's been extremely difficult to get the care that we need for that. So many people have a hard time accessing our healthcare industry as a whole. I kind of don't want to talk about that. I'm hoping the access will come there. My point is, we're talking about this. You get to do this amazing work and help people that 20 years ago, this job didn't really exist. I mean, Peter Levine, I don't really know anything about him.
He's been around since the 70s.
Okay, so he was probably a pioneer back then.
Him and like Gabor Mate, I don't know if you have read any of his stuff, but he talks about how, ADHD, bipolar, borderline, all these things are trauma that hasn't left the body.
What's
addiction.
What's the name of his book?
He has a couple, but I would look up Gabor Mate.
Okay.
He has a book that just came out about ADHD. That's really incredible because
I'll link in the description.
When you think about it, if you can't complete the stress cycle and your hormones are pumping, your body is going to show up in a different way. Your brain is the chemistry in your brain is going to show up in a different way. So, there's these people that are like, oh, I have this thing, and it's like, yeah, but when you bring the body online to healing, that's when like magic happens because that's the thing. Trauma is stored in the body, not the brain. If we could all outthink our trauma, we would all be healed. Like, we wouldn't need me. We wouldn't need anyone else. We wouldn't need therapists. Like, we wouldn't need this because our brain would just take over and magically figure it out.
So let's talk about that because we talked prior to this and some of the things that we were going to discuss, and we've just kind of been free flowing with a lot of different things, which has been awesome. But one of the things that we talked about, and I want to discuss, is you kind of alluded to where therapy misses the mark. What do you mean by that?
So when you're working
traditional avenues?
Yeah. So when you're working with trauma and you go to therapy, it's incredible, right? Like when you're talking about things and you're validating your experience, that's what it's for. But when you're working with trauma, you have to take the body online first. So therapy, CBT, like all these different types of therapies that we talk about are a top-down approach, meaning they bring the brain on first. When you're working with trauma, you want to bring the body on. You want to do a body-up approach, right? So therapy is incredible, but when you're working with trauma, you have to get into the body.
But do you feel like most people have trauma and should start Meaning most people go to like talk therapy. You have
I think that's a great place to start.
It is a great, okay.
I think that whatever helps you get support is a great place to start.
Okay.
I'm a big proponent in that, but I know for me, there was so much shame because all of these things weren't working.
How do you know, I guess my question is, how do you know if you have trauma? Because we're kind of alluding to everybody has trauma. Either lots of little T's, which could turn into something.
Yeah.
So I guess like for the average person that's like, I want to get help.
Yeah.
I need to kind of work through some things. How do they know if they have trauma or not?
That's an individual thing. So I feel like there's a lot out there around like everyone has trauma.
Because people have asked me, so I'm seeing a functional medicine doctor right now, and she's like, well, have you had a traumatic childhood? And I'm like, I didn't know how to answer that question.
That's hard, right? Because
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, sure, if I dig deep, but I still don't know how to answer that. Yes, I can pinpoint maybe a couple things that really stick out in my mind, but then maybe someone else would argue and say, well, maybe we need to like go under hypnosis and really check in there. Maybe there's things that you're not.
I think if your body is showing you that there's something there, then there's something there.
Okay.
I think if you're having autoimmunity, if you're having mental health diagnosis, if you're having any sort of body disease, cancer, if you're having that, like there's something there that needs to be worked through. That's what I'll say. Okay. I mean, people are like, Allie, does everyone have trauma? I'm like, I don't know everyone. So I don't know if their nervous system, they've been able to complete this stress cycle, right? Like, I don't know that. And
let's talk about adrenal dysfunction.
Adrenal fatigue.
Adrenal fatigue. So I just got diagnosed with adrenal fatigue.
Because you're running in fight or flight. So your adrenals are like, F you, I'm out.
Which I think is very topical. I think it's also like I'm early 40s. So I think it's typical for a lot of women to be categorized. But my point is it too buzzy or is it a real thing? I just got pneumonia in August. I think I told you that. And both my, regular doctor, traditional Western doctor, and my functional doctor were like, yeah, you're too stressed out. Because I asked, who gets pneumonia in August that's like a healthy 42-year-old? And they both said like someone that's stressed out. Yeah. So can we talk about the adrenal fatigue?
I mean, if your symptoms are showing up that you have adrenal fatigue, it is real.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Yeah.
So like,
we're going to make an appointment after this. Like, let's just be clear. Don't worry, everyone. I'm going to get the help that I need, okay?
But if you're like, think about it. If you're going back to that stress cycle, if you're going from trigger to fight or flight and you're staying there for longer than it takes to outrun this metaphorical tiger that we don't know what it is, right? Like, of course, you're going to be flooded with different hormones. So your body's going to show up in some capacity. In some way, it's going to show up. Whether that's 5 years from now, whether that's right now for you, or 20 years from now. And so, yeah.
What would that look like in 20 years? Like dementia?
I don't know.
Okay.
Depends. I don't have...
Surprise!
Yeah. I mean, it depends, right?
Yeah.
Depends on the dysregulation about what happens and how your body chemistry is.
For me, it's all about quality of life.
Yeah.
So I was watching the Blue Zones, which is where they look all around the world at like where the most concentration of centenarians, people over 100. And I haven't got to the end of it.
But think about what those people have.
Yeah. Well, but it's different.
Yeah. But most of them have like community or connection.
Community, connection.
They talk.
They have a physical,
Yeah. And they move their body.
They are moving their bodies.
Yep. And
they're eating, I don't want to say healthy because it's such a subjective word, but they're eating whole foods.
Yeah.
They're not eating,
and they're not like constantly being bombarded with the outside
They're not
world.
On social media.
Right. They're not.
Yeah.
They're constantly
They're kind of in their own little communities.
Yeah.
So for me, like my husband, we kind of had this conversation and he's like, I don't know why everyone's kind of like so obsessed. Like we're all gonna die. Yes, that's true. But for me, it's quality of life. My biggest fear is like, I don't want to wind up in a nursing home. He said, as soon as you enter a home, you immediately take off 2 to 6 years of their life, which is like not surprising. So I don't want to wind up there. I want to have like great cognitive function. I don't want my mind to deteriorate, which we're seeing a lot of people with Alzheimer's and dementia right now, which to me is terrifying. And then I don't want to be physically have have physical limitations that, really take away my independence because we're living so much longer. So it's like they can keep you alive, but what's that quality of life?
Yep.
So I guess back to my point of like, what can I be doing now? So in 20 years, I'm not going to have this surprise of.
I think working through the stress cycles, like really allowing your body to come online. Most people are living outside of their bodies. They're living disassociated.
Do you think it's getting worse with technology?
Oh, yeah. Hands down. Our attention span's shorter.
Someone was saying, like, we have all of the world's trials and tribulations and problems just right here that we can access at any time.
Yeah.
And we can't do anything about it, but it's like right there.
Yeah.
In the palm of our hand. And it's kind of terrifying.
It is. I mean, we get more information in a week, or we get more information, I think it was in an hour, than like in the 50s they did in a week.
Yeah.
So think about that.
Yeah, like one New York Times had, I think I also read a statistic that one New York Times, edition had all the information that someone would know throughout their entire life, which is, it kind of comes down to like, do I need to really know that?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of pressure. This is going to be promoted on social. People find you on social.
Yeah, I run my business off social media.
You run your business. Yeah. So it's like, how do you talk the talk and walk the walk? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's about having boundaries on myself with social media. So it's like, I don't get on social media before 10 a.m. I mean, if things are posted before 10 a.m.
Are you using it just for business? Because so
Yes.
I make this argument like, oh, I hate social media. And someone said like, well, are you like doom scrolling? And I am. I find myself like
in the scroll
and
hole.
I can't stop.
Yeah.
And I like literally can't stop. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're supposed to just be using this because you have to for work.
Well, this is an interesting thing is that when, not to nerd out, but to nerd out, is that when your nervous system like focuses in on something close to you, it's comfortable. So you have narrow vision, right? So the hardest thing for people that have narrow vision and are constantly scrolling is to get them to look around because that's where they feel like fear or anxiety or the metaphorical tiger is going to come in.
Interesting.
And people that don't want to be scrolling, they're constantly looking around and they don't want to focus in on something. So this is like ADD, right?
Oh,
they're constantly like here and picking up on things and then they'll scroll and then they'll pick up on things. So to me, it is really...
Yeah, what is that? Because I have those people in my life, and I have a really hard time.
It's just dysregulation in the nervous system.
That's how it's showing up for them.
Yeah, they're like scrolling, and then they're here, and then they're talking, and then they're doing this, and it's because their brain's trying to figure out...
You're giving me anxiety right
just
now by doing that. Like, I have a couple people in my life that are close to me that do that, and I...
Panic.
It makes me panicky, and also... It makes me feel like I can't get close to them. I can't sit down and have the eye connection and connect with them because they're over here. And so I kind of realized like I got to keep it. I can't ask the big questions. I got to keep it like pretty top level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and then that gets into like how we create meaning with people, right? So if someone in your life is constantly over here and there, then our meaning is like, oh, why don't they want to focus in on me? When really it's like they don't have capacity in their body.
But it's hard not to take it personal.
Oh, yeah.
Because you think like, oh, they don't want to connect with me.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's talk about 3 tools like approachable mental health, because I kind of mentioned earlier, access is hard. If people come to see you, they're going to have to pay privately to do so.
Yep.
Most of the times, if you want really good medical care, you're going to have to pay for it.
Yeah.
That's just the reality. And a lot of people, they have insurance, but it's a fight to be able to use it. And that's a whole other conversation. So what are like some things that you could do, like three kind of tools that you could do right now?
Yeah.
Just for your mental health.
Yeah.
We're so focused. It's funny because we're talking about the body. And we're so body obsessed. We're living in the land of Ozempic now. We're living in the like diet constant culture. We're obsessed with what everybody's bodies look like.
which we can get into, but that's a whole other topic.
That's a whole other topic, I'm sure. There's access to every single physical thing. I mean, look, like our grandparents didn't go to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't. Our moms didn't. Well, my mom. Well, like growing up, they didn't have access to sports the way that women do now. My point is, there's so many physical things that we can do, and what we're kind of like. My point is, we're so focused on the physical, but yet we're not able to do it in a healthy way. That's through this like somatic way, and then we go back to the mental health, which is thinking it's all up here in the head.
Yeah, it's not.
Are you picking up what I'm kind of where I'm going?
Like there's so many things, and like we're so focused on our body, but then like we actually like don't connect to our body.
Yes.
We're so focused on the external. Like, how do I look? How am I appearing?
Right.
Is my hair done? Is my lipstick on?
But like people are going to yoga, you know, they're making that connection. They're going to Pilates. They're doing these classes. That's not enough to do what we need to do.
No.
Okay.
If you're in fight or flight, those things are great for a temporary band-aid, right? But to actually drop into your nervous system, you have to do some type of like deeper somatic healing.
So you're not going to tell me what you're going to tell me, but you're not going to say like, go to the gym, go run, go do these things.
No.
Okay. Go to yoga.
No.
Okay.
I'm going to sit here and do somatic experiencing with you.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
Okay.
Yeah. But the 3 approachable things, right? The 3 approachable. Number 1 is just acknowledging where you're at. Like I literally have a neon sign that I have at my office that says it's okay to not be okay. For not only my clients, but like for myself. Because that's the biggest thing is we're like, oh, I'm fine. You know what fine means? It means freaked out, insecure, neurotic, or emotional. Okay?
Oh my God.
Fine does not mean that you're fine. So like the first thing that I would tell people is just acknowledge where you're at. Like I'm not okay, or I'm sad, or I'm depressed, or I'm anxious.
I say this a lot. I'm allowed to feel I think this was something I got, out of the experience of losing my sister. I'm okay, and I say it a lot. Like I'm allowed to feel my feelings.
Yeah.
They may not, and sometimes I know that they're not rational or they don't make any sense, and I am very clear on that. Like, yes, but this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah. Yep. So that's number 1, just acknowledging where you're at. Number 2 is naming the emotion. Like,
what if you're in a bad place?
Still name it.
I'm in a bad place right now.
Yeah.
I'm angry right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then have you ever seen the emotions wheel? I have it on my Instagram page, and I can always send you a little link for or everyone just
link
Google,
to your Instagram.
Yeah, or people
emotions
just like
wheel.
Emotions wheel. Like people
Is this
Google
like for
it.
children where it's like I'm the happy face, I'm the mad face?
No, it's an emotions wheel, and it's like,
by the way, I think everyone should go back to kindergarten as an adult.
Yeah.
Like I was watching my daughter the other day, and everyone was like, I don't know, it just looks so magical. I'm like, I want to go back to kindergarten for like a day.
I know, it's so pure.
Yeah.
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 So this emotions wheel, what it does is it goes through the primary emotions like anger, sadness, right? And then it teases it out to actually get down to like, what are you actually feeling if you're angry? Are you feeling resentful? Are you feeling like lonely? Are you like, it gets down into more words.
Is it better to drill it down to like kind of come to like a real...
Yeah, because people just throw around like, I'm feeling sad.
It's too broad.
Yeah. And so I would say the second thing is actually drilling down into what the emotion is. And then the third, if you're a pro, is where does that emotion sit in your body? So making that connection. Okay, I'm angry. Is my jaw tight? Is my chest, constricted? Is my stomach, am I getting IBS right now? Like, where does it live in your body? Is it in my hips? Like, I don't know. Is it in your fingertips? Wherever it is.
So give me an example. Like it's in my hips, which for women, they store it. I think everyone stores a ton of emotion in their hips.
Well, it depends on the person.
Oh.
So this is like a generic thing that we say.
This is just a generic.
Right. It's like there are a lot of emotions in the hips. Yeah, but maybe not. Maybe it's in your shoulders. Everyone's different.
So then when I'm just trying to say like something that everybody can do. I'm feeling that in my shoulders.
Yeah.
Then what would you have them do?
Well, then I would just like keep on doing that. Those are the 3 things.
Just the awareness.
Just the awareness.
Just the
piece.
awareness.
Because most of us are living so out here. Oh, I got to pick up my kids. I have to do this, thing for work. I need to cook dinner. I need to call that friend back.
Why do you think that is? Because I've also heard...
Because it's comfortable to live there. Because that's the only way that you've known how to survive.
Okay. But we're here in this physical body, This is the most real thing that we have is the physical body.
Yeah.
It can interact. The mind can't interact with the world.
Yeah, but people...
It needs a mouth to communicate. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So why are we so disconnected?
Because if you actually lived in your body, like really lived in your body, it's going to scare you.
Mm.
It's going to scare you because you've never done that before for people that have been disassociated out here.
Mm-hmm.
I have clients that can only live in their body for like a minute, 30 seconds, 10 seconds. And then when we're working through emotions, they're like, I don't want to feel this anger because I've felt this anger my entire life. And I don't know any different. So I'm actually scared of knowing the difference. People come to me and they're like, I want to change. And then like change will start to happen. They're like, nope, I'm going to revert back to the thing. Because there's like painful awakenings that happen. And the people that are around you also have to do the work as well if they're going to stay in your life. And that's scary and it's a challenge, right?
Wow. It's so fascinating. It's really, really fascinating. So let's shift gears a little bit. I feel like right now everyone is very, like I said, just so much more comfortable talking about and sharing their stories. But sometimes it can turn into their identity.
Mm-hmm.
So how, like for you,
Mm-hmm.
how do you make healing?
Mm-hmm.
Like people, call my husband and send me messages on 9/11, and he told me something interesting. He said, every day is 9/11 for me. It's just 9/11 for you today.
Yeah.
My
Right.
dad's gone every day.
Yeah.
This isn't any other different day.
Right.
You guys are all aware of it because you have your own stories around it. And it's not been part of his identity. He doesn't really talk about it. This is like kind of the first time I'm even really talking about it, I guess, in a public way. It's just not, it's certainly his story, but he hasn't made it. He certainly could have made it his whole identity. And there are people that latch on to being a cancer survivor or being a different abuse survivor or this or that, and it becomes their whole identity. Mm-hmm. Is that a bad thing? How do you avoid that?
Yeah. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that it's part of the process. Mm-hmm. So I'll talk about, from my perspective, is that when all of this stuff was happening around my health, it was like that became my identity. That became my like driving force, was like, oh, because of all these bad things that have happened, I'm going to prove people wrong. Like that became my driving force, right?
Oh, interesting.
And that isn't the case anymore because I've worked through that. But I think a lot of people, including myself, I felt like I was a victim to everything that had happened to me. And this is like a hot topic that people are like, well, what do you mean? Are you victim blaming people? And I'm like, no, I'm not bypassing. I'm not victim blaming. I'm not talking about that. But the minute that I could say,
I hate blaming the victim.
Yeah. I'm not saying that.
And I'm not saying that you are, but
yeah.
like, that's really hard.
Yeah. But
it's hard to see.
Yes. Yeah. But I'm saying for me, it was like I was living in that space. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I am the victim. The minute that someone says you're a victim, it immediately takes the power out of you.
Mm.
It immediately took the power out of me. Oh, poor you. Oh, you're the victim. Oh, all of these things have happened to you in your life, right? And we've only kind of scratched the surface of all of the things. Mm-hmm. But the minute that I finally took my power back and I was like, I'm not a victim of my circumstances. I get to like co-create with the universe. I get to create this life that I want to live. And these things that have happened to me and these people that have hurt me, I don't have to take that anger and resentment, and that doesn't need to be the fuel for my life. Mm-hmm. Like I can actually move from a place of like resolved emotions and a healthier nervous system. Mm-hmm. But I do think that when people get into healing, when they're really in it, it becomes their identity. And it's like this almost...
So they have to... Can they get stuck there? Or do you think you see them push past? Do you think it's unhealthy to stay stuck there?
I do.
Okay.
I see, most people that I have seen that have made full recovery from health conditions don't live there. Mm-hmm. And you'll talk to doctors, you'll talk to, practitioners, they say the same thing. It's like they have this post-traumatic resilience is what we call it.
Okay.
So where they take the thing that has, hurt them and they use it for like growth, but not in a like angry way, not in a resentful way.
Okay. Interesting. We talked a little bit about, how you can't outthink trauma because it's all stored in the body. Let's talk a little bit about anger and how to kind of access it in a healthy way.
Yeah. I mean,
because it's okay to be angry.
Yes.
Like it's okay to fight with Ryan. It's healthy.
Yeah.
And that's something like I'm teaching, my kids is, it's okay. You look at your parents as these things that are kind of beyond you, and then you grow up and realize they're just human beings. But, I want my kids to see me sad and like see my husband sad or see me cry, see us like be angry and just have all of those emotions and know that they're all healthy and they're all available to us. So I think anger is something that people try not to do, but especially for women, like how do we like just kind of live in that, access that, live that, allow it to happen, and then complete the cycle?
Yeah. I will say that, most women, including myself until I got support, did not know how to access anger in a healthy way. I was like Beth Dutton. Do you watch Yellowstone? I was like so Beth Dutton.
Like, I love Beth. Look, if Beth came in right now, I would be like, oh shit, we gotta like lock the doors. She terrifies me.
Yeah.
But yet I also want to be her.
Yes.
I want to be friends with her.
Yeah, right.
But I would never make her mad.
Yeah, because she's emulating all of that anger that most of us women want to actually do, right?
Yeah. So she's got the great lines and the writing, and she can just deliver on it so well.
But that was me. It's like I was such
Beth
a smart ass
so
with my words. Like I wouldn't fight physically, but I would fight you with my words. Like I would drop.
Good for you, because something will happen to me, and then I'm like 5 minutes later, and I'm like,
but it's not good. Yeah, it's not.
Should've said that.
Yeah, it's not good though, because it wasn't healthy. Because it was wrecking my relationships. It was wrecking the people that were closest to me, and that's like out of my own pain, right?
Yeah.
So for me, like I fight like Beth Dutton. I'm just a fighter, like really, because there's so much I can get into on that. So. And when I was actually able to access this old anger that I never got to say, right? And like allow myself to feel the anger, but not do it in an unhealthy way like Beth Dutton, right? Like Beth needs some somatic experiencing.
Beth needs help.
She needs, but we love her.
We love her.
Yeah, but she needs support.
She needs help.
Yeah, she needs, I mean, she's got a lot.
Yeah,
don't we all?
A lot.
But yeah.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot there. But how you can access your anger is actually allowing yourself to like feel the anger. So I have clients that will come in and they'll like start talking and they'll just like have their, and I'm like, feel this. This is like healthy aggression. Like we need healthy aggression to live. If you were out in the animal kingdom, you would need healthy aggression to survive.
Right.
But we shut it down because as women, it's like, oh, what are you taught in elementary school if someone has anger? They go to the principal's office or they get stuck in the corner. So you're like, I'm never going to access that emotion because it's really unhealthy.
Do you think you need a physical release?
I think that it depends. You need some type of something. But, when women are like...
Is it the, like, yelling in the pillow?
You can do that.
Kickboxing? Is
it like...
jumping on your bike?
Yeah. I mean, there's, like, different ways to do it, right? So, like, I'll tell people, like, punch the pillow, scream into the pillow. You can work with someone. I do this with my clients, too, like myofascial release, because your emotions are stored in your fascia tissue, right? But so many women have so much anger, and then it's turned into resentment, and then they're using it in an unhealthy way. Then they're fueling themselves through this unhealthy anger. So then they're being a jerk to their partner. They're saying mean things to people. They're screaming at their kids, like because they have this anger that they haven't been able to tap into in a healthy way.
Can we talk about caffeine?
I'd love to talk about caffeine.
What are your thoughts on caffeine?
It is such a nervous system dysregulator.
I feel like you were going to say that because I question my own consumption of caffeine.
Yeah. I mean, as someone in recovery, it's like the only thing, and you too probably, right? It's like the only thing that I'm like, this is my vice. It's like that or sugar.
Yeah.
Or overworking.
Yeah.
So it's like you just replace one addiction for the next, right? So caffeine.
So how much caffeine? And I know you're going to say it's subjective and it's dependent on, the individual.
Yeah.
But like, should I be giving up? We bought a very nice German espresso maker.
So good.
I mean, it's basically like going to Avid or like Retrograde at our house.
Good.
It's amazing.
You never want to leave.
We never want to leave. My husband went from drinking no coffee
to
like drinking
3
like
cups
4
a day.
lattes a day.
Of course. Of course.
Because it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
And we've gotten really good. We've dialed in the preparation. But I question, is it making me, like, how much?
How do you feel when you drink it?
Jacked.
Okay, so probably not. It's probably not making you feel good then. Like you love.
Like, can I have 1 a day?
Well, let's talk about it. Like when you.
I really want 2 a day.
Okay.
I want to wake up and have my coffee.
Yeah, because it's a ritual. We love
It's a
rituals.
ritual.
It's so good.
I look at the New York Times. I play Wordle. I do my little games and have quiet time. Because I go to bed really early.
Yeah. Good for you.
And then, like, I get my kids up and start the day. And then 3 o'clock, I really want to have another one to, like, push through for the rest of the day.
So when you have that first cup of coffee, how jacked are you feeling? You're like, oh my God, now I'm on a high and, like, I can get everything done.
Yeah, I feel like I can tackle the day.
Yeah.
But there's other times where I feel like my patience is less with my kids.
Do you have cravings at night?
No.
Okay. What else happens when you drink coffee?
That's it. I just kind of get like...
You get more angry.
Yeah, I can get irritable. I can get irritable.
Well, yeah, because it's literally a stimulant and it dysregulates the nervous system. Like for me, I'm in my like nervous system regulation.
Are you drinking
era.
coffee every day?
Not currently, no.
Okay.
But I go back on like I have tendencies, so I go back on like I'm not drinking coffee. Then I'm only having 1 a week. Then it's like 5 a week. Then it's like every day I'm having coffee.
It's like trying to find that balance.
Yeah, I think that it really is about you just listening to your body. Right? Like I don't live in your body.
I think sometimes the messages are there and you ignore them.
Yeah, because it's so easy. Because the thing is that there's a sense of control in knowing how jacked you're going to feel from coffee. This is how I feel. I'm like, oh, I know I'm going to get really anxious. I'm going to be more like snippy with Ryan, but I'm going to get a lot of work done.
Yeah.
So I'm like, which one are you giving up?
It's like the trade-off. It's like my kids are quiet. I know that they're destroying one of my rooms, but they're providing me with peace. And it's like you play that like mental like chess. Like, is the trade-off worth it? Because for me it is. It's like as a projector, you have that focused time.
Yeah, you got to get shit done.
That you can really, really focus. And I like to be like super focused on what I'm doing.
I think, too, is that if you are drinking coffee, then add something else that's going to help your nervous system calm down at the other end of the night. So, like, laying with your legs up against the wall.
Okay.
And, like, letting your lymph
give me a couple things that people can do instead of turning. So, for me, 5 o'clock was, like, time to have a glass of Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
And then that was a whole thing that I had to stop when I had my second child because I realized it was not relaxing me. It was actually making me more stressed out because I couldn't handle feeling so, not great the next day. So give me some strategies before we close out, because we are going to have to close out because we could just keep talking forever. Give me a couple strategies that maybe women in particular can go to, and men too. At the end of the day, where like they want to reach for an alcoholic beverage.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, you tell me, and then I'll have a couple of thoughts too.
When we first got sober, which was really challenging.
So your husband is as well?
Yeah, we got sober on the same day. So
Nice.
Ryan and I have been in recovery same amount of time, which has been great. We turned to sparkling water because we wanted the bubbles. Like I was a big champagne gal. He was a big beer person. So like we were really craving the bubbles. So doing something like, and still making it fun, because I think that's the part of it. I also think too is like listening to what's coming up. So if you're like, oh, I want to reach for this because I'm feeling anxious or I'm worried about what's happening or I want to just de-stress from the day, like finding other ways to de-stress. If that's going for a walk and watching the sunset, if that is putting your legs up the wall, if that is, working out or pushing the wall, like literally if you have anger, like pushing the wall so that you can feel that pressure up against your body, and then like letting out sound. So when you're moving trauma out of the body, you want 3 things. You want breath, sound, and movement, typically.
Okay.
Okay, so like letting some sound out when you're pushing up against the wall. Yeah, or just finding like a different routine. But I also think too, and this is like, I feel like we could do a whole nother episode on this, but like with, alcoholism, I don't know if you refer to yourself as an alcoholic, but like there's like dry drunks, right? So where you actually just substitute the alcohol for something else.
I know a lot of people do sugar is a big one.
Well, that's why at AA meetings you have sugar and coffee.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're substituting something that's less.
I didn't do AA. I read This Naked Mind by Annie Grace.
Okay.
I read half of the book and I was done.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm a certified wine professional. Never in a million years thought that I could do it.
Yeah.
If anybody is thinking about it, if they're sober curious, if anybody, I never in a million years thought I could be that person.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's
I'm proud of you too.
Thanks.
I don't miss it at all.
No.
At all.
Yeah.
There are moments and then I let them just, wave on by. I will say we are living in the best time if you are wanting to cut back on your alcohol consumption or you're just wanting not to drink at all. We are living in the best time. There are a million options out there.
Yeah.
Curious to look. I'm pretty, I have LaCroix and maybe I'll add in some fancy things. I don't go crazy. There's a great place. There's a great non-alcoholic little bar. And
I can't go to it.
You
It's so
can't go to
triggering.
it. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, as an alcoholic, like it's
triggering for you. Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't get into like the mocktails.
Mm-mm.
Okay. I
Yeah.
didn't think about that. I do. For me, and it doesn't have to be like the faux, tequila or the faux scotch. For me, it can be like, we're going to get like an elderflower, syrup, lime juice, some really nice crushed ice in a fancy glass. And like that celebration, that special moment, whatever it is, it's just as special. I never thought like going to Hawaii could be as good without a Mai Tai. Mm-hmm. Spoiler alert, it is.
Yeah.
Like,
it's actually funner because
it's actually more fun.
Yeah.
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 And like having, coconut and all the different fun juices in the fancy cups, it tastes just as good.
Yeah.
And then you're not.
Yeah, no, I got to stay away from that. It's too much for me.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
But so there's a variety of different ways to kind of go about it.
Yeah.
But I will say we're in the best time.
For sure.
People are the most accepting. And I read that Gen Z is drinking way less. Mm-hmm. And everyone is like kind of aware that alcohol really has absolutely no benefit to you. Mm-hmm. And it is a poison.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I love that.
Okay. So people can find you on Instagram.
Yep. TikTok.
TikTok.
Yeah, girl.
Wow.
On TikTok.
You are brave.
Instagram. I know there's some rude comments, but Instagram, TikTok, my website, everything is allycates.co.
What are the rude comments?
Oh, I don't know. People are just wild.
People are wild on TikTok.
People are wild on TikTok, yeah.
Okay, because you have more exposure. You're getting like people that don't even know you.
And they're like hiding behind, a name that's like 4529. Da, 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 da. Like there's numbers.
Everybody has numbers. Yeah. Is that what it is?
No, I mean you can. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a whole thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Instagram. I'm on Instagram.
Yeah. allycates.co, website allycates.co, and TikTok is allycates.co.
Okay, I want to have you come back for sure.
Yes. Thank you so much
Thanks
for having
coming.
me.
Yeah.
It's been so fun. I love in person. It's so much better.
Yeah. Good.
It's so much better.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining me today. For more info, you can always find us at yin-project.com. Make it a great day.